In this tutorial we're going to look at making this lightning bolt text title thing, and as an extra bonus, because I've reached the height of 300 subscribers, I'm going to put the settings file in the downloads link so that you can have a copy yourself. Yeah, it's there, it will be available, although it would be quite nice if you watched the tutorial as well, just so you know what we did. Okay, as usual, I'm going to be diving into Fusion, but before I do, I just want to make a point of showing you my current project settings, which are 1080p at 24 frames a second. That kind of becomes important in a minute when we start sort of working out timings, and you'll understand that I'm working at 24 frames a second, which is why I make the sort of timings that I do. Okay, so usual, find your Fusion comp. I have mine in favourites because I use it all the time. If yours isn't there, come up to the top of the screen, click the effects library to turn it on, go to effects, and don't have anything in your search bar. In effects, Fusion comp at the top. Drag it onto your timeline. And I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit because I'm not quite sure how long this is going to end up being. I'm hoping it's going to be under 5 seconds, but we'll see. So select your clip and into Fusion. So in the Fusion tab, I'm going to bring my media out of the way, and I'm going to bring a background node, which I can find on the hotbar here, and just drop it in and connect them up. All that does is it gives me something to hang the various elements onto as we're building it, as we're going to be using this over something else. We need to make that background transparent. Okay, first element I'm going to address is the lightning bolt effect, just because it's easier to time the text to the lightning bolt than it is the other way around. So to make our lightning bolt, we're going to select a background, and we're going to come to the middle of the toolbar and find polygon, and I'm going to pipe the output of the polygon into the blue mask input of the background. Are you impressed? So okay, at the moment there's nothing in there. What I'm also going to do, just to make things a bit easier, is I'm going to right click in this view window, and I'm going to select guides and show guides. That just shows me where the center of the screen is. So next we need to draw our polygon, and basically you just click points to set them down, and this can be any shape you want, but you're going for a sort of lightning bolt effect coming across the screen. Like so. Remembering when you get to this point that you're going to be coming back to your center point and off. So at the minute we've got our polygon, you can't see anything, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up and we're going to find solid in the inspector here, and we're going to uncheck solid, and we're going to add some border width. About 0.005 should be enough for what we want, thereabouts. And now if we click away from our nodes and deselect them, you can see we've got our black line. So the first thing we're going to do is change the colour to something a bit more interesting than black, and we'll go with this nice blue. The next thing we're going to do is, if you come into your polygon, the way we're going to animate it is we're going to use this length and position. Now if we put length to 0, you see here you've still got a tiny little dot, which is the end of our polygon line. To get rid of that, we come to the border style and we come to these end caps and we pick flat, and it goes away. Okay. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to come down to the bottom of the inspector and I'm going to right click and put remove polygon 1 polyline. Basically that stops this animating should we accidentally move any of the points. Okay, so onto the animation. As I say, we're going to use position and length to animate basically right on and right off our lightning bolt. So we're going to need to keyframe both of those, so make sure your playhead is back at frame 0 and set a keyframe on position and on length and drop length to 0. Next we're going to come forward 6 frames or 2 frame 6 and we're going to put the length to 1 and we're going to keyframe our position still at 0. Now we're going to come forward to frame 12 and we're going to bring our position to 1 and we're going to keyframe our length still at 1. And now we're going to come forward to frame 24 and we're going to keyframe both position and length without changing anything. And that's basically our lightning animation. So what we're going to do now is loop that animation so that it runs indefinitely. To do that, we're going to come up to the top of the screen on the right and find spline, click on it, and this opens up your spline editor. What you need to do is make sure that polygon is visible and selected. If it's not, you can come into your node tree and make sure polygon is selected, or you can come to these 3 dots in your spline editor and make sure show only selected tool is unchecked. So with our polygon selected, we can see the waveform. Our playhead is at frame 24 where we've just set our last keyframe. So what I'm going to do is click on this little button here that says zoom to fit, and I'm going to click and drag from the far side of the playhead over to include this first keyframe. So with all those keyframes selected, if you come down to the bottom of your spline editor, you've got all these icons, and the one in the middle here is called set loop, and if you hit that, it does exactly what it says on the tin. If we now zoom in a bit, or zoom out a bit, sorry, you can see that this pattern is just repeated over and over. So you'll have 24 frames and it will repeat, so it will repeat every second. And if we play it, you can see that happening like so. And that is basically our lightning sorted out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the output from the background and we're going to bring it and drop it onto the output of our original background. This automatically creates a merge node and we're just going to move all that down the line. Right, so the next thing we need is our text, and for that again you can come to your hotbar, you can grab the third one along is the text plus node and just bring it in. The text can be anything you want. I'm going to start with something simple that I can remember because people say it to me all the time. And you can see your text is now in the middle of your screen. We are going to set up our text how we want it. I'm going to use a font called Rubik, which if you search you can find on various font websites if you so desire, but you can use whatever font you want. I'm going to up the size a bit, and just to make it a bit more interesting I'm going to come into the shading tab on my text and I'm going to make it an outline, and I'm going to change the colour to something like this. like so. So now we have our text, and if we again take the output of our text node and bring it down onto the output of our original background, we get another merge node. Now this window is showing your final output, and you can see the lightning bolt goes across the text. So what we need to do is make the text appear and disappear as the lightning bolt is going across. So we're going to do this using the arrow keys on your keyboard and go forward a frame at a time. So you'd come forward, so there'd be no text there at that point, and then as the lightning comes away, your text will be revealed. Now to make our text appear and disappear, we're going to use a mask. For the mask, we're going to use a rectangle. Again, come to your hotbar. Just underneath your play controls, you've got rectangle. Drag it in, and you're going to pipe the output of your rectangle into the blue mask input of your merge node that's got your text on it. Now if you look in your final output window, you can see the effect of the mask. It's cut off my text. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop it down a bit, and we're going to make it wider. Now this mask needs to be as wide as your widest piece of text. The way I'm doing this, you'll have 4 texts appear, and you want this rectangle to be as wide as the widest one. Just so happens that my name is the widest of the 4 I'm going to use. So once you've got that roughly set up, come into your inspector and just soften the edge some. And if you want to see how much you've softened it by, you can see here. And then you can return that back to the middle. So now to start animating this. So at the start, we're at frame 0, we're going to keyframe center, and we're going to drag this off to the side so that the text disappears. So about there. We're going to come forward 6 frames. Make sure you click once in your node graph area, otherwise your arrow keys are nudging whatever's in this window. So click once, and come forward 6 frames to there. Now our lightning's in place and is about to go off and reveal our text. So at frame 6 we're going to keyframe center. Come forward to frame 12, by which point our lightning has disappeared, and just reset center to 0.5. This will automatically set your next keyframe. Now this box is going to hold for 12 frames, so come forward to frame 24. Keyframe your center, and then go forward to frame 30, by which time your lightning has come back in, so your text would be hidden, and you just need to drag it off to the other side, like so. Now, much as we did with our polygon, I'm going to loop this rectangle mask. So with the rectangle selected, again hit spline. Your rectangle has appeared and you've got check marks so you can see it, and again zoom to fit. Now this time I don't want this first frame, I don't want that delay, because once you get to frame 30 you only got the back and forward sliding. So I'm going to click and drag and select these 4 keyframes, and again I'm going to hit set loop, and what happens is as you hit frame 30 it automatically pushes the mask back to the beginning, so you can start this process again. So now all things being equal, if we hit play at the start, you will see that the text goes on and off in time with the lightning, like so. final bit of animation we're going to do is we're going to change the text with each passing of the lightning bolt. So again, we're going to use our arrow keys and come forward so we can see what's happening. The lightning comes on. As the lightning goes off, our first lot of text is revealed, held, and then goes off. Now at frame 30, our text is gone. So what we can do is we can use that frame to change the text. So to do that, we're going to come into our text node, make sure it's selected. We're going to go to the text tab, and we are going to keyframe our text input box. So I'm just going to drop back to frame 0. I'm going to keyframe it. I'm going to come to frame 30 where the change is going to happen, and I'm going to change the text. And as you can see, as I've changed the text, it's automatically set a keyframe. So now we're going to step through again, and you'll see that as the lightning goes away, we've got our new text. So we're going to step through again, and again at that point, so at frame 54, you can't see the text, so you can change it. And again, we will step through and have our third lot of text. And then I'm going to go to the last. So at frame 78, we can change to our last lot of text. And again, if we carry on stepping through, and at that point, potentially you could keep going, but I'm going to restrict it to 4 lots of text. So at that point, I'm going to just delete that, so that when the lightning clears this time, there's nothing there, and your effect is effectively ended. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a couple of frames. So I'm going to go to frame 110. Now I'm going to come back into the edit tab, and you can see our playhead is at what would be frame 110. So I'm going to hit B on the keyboard to get my razor blade, and I'm going to cut at the playhead. Hit A, and then just delete this last bit. So our total effect runs to 4 seconds and 14 frames, so just over 4.5 seconds, which is great. What that means is that I can now add in a keyframe stretcher, and we can stretch this effect from anywhere from 4.5 seconds onwards. So at the minute, we will see if I can get render working, or render cache working, should I say. Just give it a second to cache. So what you get is your title reasonably quickly. And that's basically the title. So what we're going to do is go back into Fusion, and we're going to just jazz it up a little bit. Don't know why they've gone funky on me, because I haven't had any keyframes and it's working. Oh well. So we'll just zuzz it up a little bit. So we'll just tidy up, bring everything a bit closer together so that we've got and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a glow node in after this. So select your last merge node, shift spacebar and type glow, and hit enter. Now what we will see is we can start tweaking that glow node. So we can increase the glow size, we can increase the glow itself, and we can push it up to where we want it. Final piece of the puzzle is, as I say, the keyframe stretcher. These are funky and I'm not totally convinced about them, but we'll do it anyway. So shift space bar, type key, and it automatically goes to keyframe stretcher. Hit enter. Now we need to set this up. So our comp runs from frame 0 to frame 109. So we need to set start source at 0 and end source at 109. And I'm going to set my start and end stretches at 1 and 108. So basically it will stretch anything between those 2 points. The other thing I did is I had the text jiggling, so we'll do that as well. Come into your text field here, right click. Okay, I can't do it in this. In the downloadable version that I will make available, and the link will be in the description, the text is actually jiggling. The reason I can't do it in this is because I've animated this text box. I can't now add any modifiers to it. Had I not animated the text box, so using this as an example, had I not animated the text box, what I could have done was added modifiers here. But I can't do it because I've animated the text box. So that will be something for another tutorial. So that's our basic effect. It will do what it's meant to do on a basic level. So coming back to the edit tab, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in the file that you will be able to download, and we'll have a look at how it's different. So titles, bolt, it's this one, bolt 2. How is this different? Okay, so the first and obvious way that it's different is it's a macro, and what the macro has is all these controls. So you can change the text fields, you can change the text style, you can change the color of the lightning bolt, and you can adjust the glow. So that's great. From a user point of view, all you've got to do is slap it on your timeline and you can make those changes. Under the HUD, if you go into Fusion, what you get is 2 nodes, your immediate out and your bolt text node. Now I've got a macro, a fuse installed that I got off React that lets me open up macros. So I'll do that. And now we end up with this grouped version of the macro, which we can have a look at. The biggest difference you'll see is the texts. What I ended up doing was having 4 separate text nodes, 1 for each of the lines of text. The reason I had 4 sets of text nodes is because of that ability to add modifiers, and each text node has the same modifiers attached. If you look at the top here, you've got tools and then modifiers next to it, which I can click on. What I did was I actually, again, something for another tutorial, I'll go into text nodes and all these kind of bits and pieces, but I took all the controls for text 1 and published them, and then connected all the other text nodes to them so that they all had the same color, the same font, etc. But from the point of view of the jiggly text, if you like, the important bits were the follower node, which lets you offset effects that are attached to your text. So in this instance, on the shading tab, I believe, we had the offset value controlled by yet another follower, and that follower was, I believe, this path, and then the center of the path was affected by a further modifier, and that being the shake. So basically this shake modifier is applied to the text and is then copied to each of the other text nodes. Because I couldn't keyframe the main text box the way I did in the tutorial, I've had to use dissolve nodes as switches. So basically at the appropriate keyframe, the dissolve node just switches. So before frame 30 it's showing text 1, after frame 30 it's showing text 2, etc. And then this switches halfway through from the top 2 to the bottom 2, and then this switches between the 2 bottom ones. It's kind of a more complex way, I guess, of changing and animating the text, but it allowed me to do things like add the jiggle. The other major difference is in the tutorial I used a polygon line to make the lightning bolt. In this title macro I've used a paint node, just because with the paint node, unlike the polygon line, you have, if I can actually get it visible somewhere, I'll show you, you've got to select it to see the controls. So if I do that, so now we can see the paint node. In the paint node inspector you have write on and write, so this is much easier to animate because you basically write it on with this side and then write it off with that side and then start again. So it's slightly easier than the polygon. The downside to the paint node is I couldn't use it in Patrick Sterling's new Proton giveaway effect. I needed a polyline for that, so I made a polyline. What I'll do at the end is I'll tag on this effect run through Patrick Sterling's Proton, and I'll leave a link in the description again to Patrick's video where he talks about Proton and tells you how to get hold of it for free. It's an amazing plugin, it's phenomenal. He's put a lot of work into it and done a really good job. So yeah, that's just a little aside. So yeah, back to our sort of original Fusion clip. As I say, this is what you've built. Feel free to build it yourself. It's good practice. It gets you sort of used to sort of getting around the spline editor and all that kind of stuff. It makes you think about timings. And once you've gone through the tutorial, and if you want the posh version, feel free to download it. As I say, the link will be in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!